Please direct your attention to the south end zone. Scrum majors Peyton Flowers, Sarah Heyman, and Trey Bruce take the field.
A sweet, soft southern brew. Worked hard all week, got a little jingle on a Tennessee Saturday night. Couldn't feel better, I'm together with my Dixieland tonight. Spend my dollar on parked in a holler needs mountain moonlight. Hold her up tight,
and welcome into the Patrick Party. We're excited you're here with us on this Iron Bowl Saturday morning. The Tide and the Tigers will take it on in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Man, do we have a big day of college football in store for everyone. Well, we want to go ahead and welcome you on in. This is the Patrick Party pregame show. We're excited you're joining with us, and look at our new little logo we have right in front of us. Definitely something cool that we've added right here. So we're excited you're here with us on this college football Saturday. Well, let's go ahead and get into it because we have a big day of college football and a big day to go through all throughout. We have so much to talk about. Egg Bowl, Iron Bowl, whole bunch of other rivalries, and then a whole bunch of teams in the SEC East that are just playing one another because their rivalries, like Georgia Tech and South Carolina Clemson and Kentucky Louisville, all not playing on this traditional rivalry weekend, or really at all this season. But they're going to be playing one another, so we're going to be talking about a lot of that. Big day in the SEC and all throughout the country. We also are going to recap last night's games. We have so much to talk to you about. But let's go ahead and start the show like we always like to. Well, first, we missed you last week. We're glad to be back. Took a week off, but we're happy to be here. So let's go ahead and recap what's been happening all throughout Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving night, we had, well, actually throughout the day because the night game was canceled. That's Ravens-Steelers. It's been further postponed and pushed back. And then we had the shocker, in my opinion. We had Washington just blowing out the Cowboys. Now, I picked Washington, but I didn't think they'd blow them out. So definitely a surprise there. Another thing that happened, let's see, Detroit lost yet again. Seems like they lose just about every Thanksgiving, and so they kept that tradition going. And then yesterday, Oregon lost to Oregon State, and the Oregon State game no longer called the Civil War. That was one of the many things this summer that got changed. And Oregon State won, so it looks like the Pac-12 might be out of the playoff. We'll talk all about that and more. But we're going to go ahead and reveal our location. So we're going to be right outside Jordan-Hare Stadium. Actually right in front of where the Gene Chizik banner is, and the big gates that say Jordan-Hare Stadium, right next to the recruiting facility and press box. So that's where we're going to be later today as we make our picks here on the Patrick Party pregame show. So let's go ahead and get into our Saturday slate, and we're going to go ahead and start it off. And Ben Hill, Griffin Stadium, Kyle Trask show, really. Kyle Trask definitely looks to have another big year. A Heisman hopeful, which will be a segment we have coming up, a new one in just a little bit. But Kentucky's offense stinks. I wouldn't expect Kentucky to be able to score and contend with Florida. Kyle Trask, Dan Mullen, that entire offense has been electric all day long. That'll be on ESPN right after College Game Day. Then we have Maryland, Indiana. So it'll be Memorial Stadium. Maryland hasn't played in a hot little minute because I believe they have dealt with, like a lot of people, COVID problems. So we will see Maryland for the first time in a minute with Tua Tagovailoa's brother, I think Talia, who is their starting quarterback. Indiana, obviously number 12, lost to Ohio State last week, fell back in the rankings, and now they are playing Maryland on ESPN2 right after College Game Day ends. Next up here on our Saturday slate, we have Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. Well, Oklahoma State did not look too hot at all against Oklahoma. So I would think their playoff shot is out. I would think all of the Big 12 playoffs hopes are done. But we'll see what Texas Tech can do. It'll be in Boone Pickens Stadium today on the big noon game on Fox. So this will go right after their big noon kickoff show thing with Urban Meyer and everybody. Then we have two terrible teams playing in the Big Ten. What a shock. You would not have guessed this would be that bad going into the season, but it sure has been. And it's just definitely been a surprise how terrible a lot of these teams have been. Michigan only has 2 wins. They barely beat Rutgers last week. And Penn State winless. Michigan's a 1-point favorite. We're going to talk about that later in the spread. But this will be on ABC, leading you into the day. Then the Egg Bowl. What a fun Egg Bowl we have in store this year. Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin. That enough is a good game. You have Ole Miss's high-powered offense, Mississippi State's high-powered offense for one game against LSU. They actually showed some hope last week against Georgia, which was definitely a surprise. So we'll see how that keeps going. But this will be in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, and I'll make my pick later on this one, actually live, because I forgot to pick it when we were in during here. But we have LSU Texas A&M. Now, what a difference a year makes, kind of a theme we've been saying today. If you haven't read already, on PatrickPurdy.com, we have our Iron Bowl preview, kind of looking back on last year's game, and then really focusing in on this game. Will also be really giving you a lot of analysis for that. Let's go back 2 years here. Last time they were in Kyle Field, that crazy overtime game, I think it went like 7 overtimes scored, was in the 70s. Number 5, Texas A&M. They won in the end. Kind of a shocker for LSU to actually lose. Jimbo Fisher's big, huge, buy-in, hip hip hooray game. Everyone storms the field. So they win. Now LSU, terrific last year, was mad about it. Blew A&M out, I think 45-7, something huge at home. Well, now it's looking like it's going to be the other way, because LSU stinks, and A&M is okay, in my opinion. I don't know if they're really the 5th best team, but we'll see how that goes. So I don't know how close this one will be on primetime and ESPN. Then, next up, we have South Carolina, Georgia. Now, this is not going to be a pretty one. Georgia had that bad game last week. I think they're really going to keep it foot on the pedal as they keep it going down this stretch. They are number 9, not number 5. They are number 9. That graphic's a little bit wrong. It'll be in Williams-Brice Stadium. And Georgia, they're just probably competing to maybe go to a Sugar Bowl or something. I don't think they will, but we'll see. South Carolina, Will Muschamp's out. This isn't going to be a very good game, but it's something. So it'll be on ESPN tonight. Yes. Then you have Washington, Utah. Now this is kind of weird. So both teams, I believe last Sunday, had their games postponed for this weekend. And it's actually not postponed in the Pac-12. It's canceled because they don't have time to make it up because they started so late. So what they ended up doing is they said, hey, we'll just play each other. And then Oklahoma, West Virginia got canceled. So ESPN lost their ABC Saturday Night Football game. So they said, well, we'll come broadcast it. So now it went from not happening a week ago and the game not even existing to being ESPN Saturday Night Football primetime. Just the crazy way this year's worked out. So that'll be a big game. And then the game everyone's excited for, the Iron Bowl, the 85th edition of the Iron Bowl. In fact, you have number 1 Alabama and number 22 Auburn in Bryant-Denny Stadium. So many storylines. Alabama's explosive offense, Auburn's defense, which has really been in recent years the only one that's been able to stop Alabama at all. So we're going to see how this one goes down. Definitely looks like it's going to be a very interesting game for sure. Well, Nick Saban will not be in attendance, so this will be very interesting to see how it goes down with Steve Sarkisian leading the Tide. Of course, this will be on SEC CBS Game of the Week. Per usual, they normally like to do the show, and they'll continue to do it, at least until their contract runs out. Then that's going to do it for our Saturday slate. Let's go ahead and get into, the worst segment of the day, COVID craziness. Well, let's go ahead and get it started here. So, coming up first in our COVID craziness, let's go through all of the games that got postponed. So we're going to start it off. Ohio State, Illinois, last night, late last night. They decided to postpone it. Yesterday, Ryan Day tested positive for COVID-19. He was clearly exposed to a whole bunch of players. That's a 21-day layoff that they'll have to have. So that was canceled. Then you have Oklahoma, West Virginia. Oklahoma, number 11. That game got postponed. Minnesota, Wisconsin, the longest running rivalry. That game got postponed. And then a whole bunch of smaller ones. Oh, Cincinnati's game got canceled as well. Anything in the Big Ten or Pac-12 is automatically canceled just because they simply don't have enough time to make it up, which is kind of sad, but it's also their fault for starting so late. So let's keep it on. So COVID, let's see, what else? Nick Saban, obviously a huge storyline on Wednesday, not going to be at the Iron Bowl. He cannot, due to technology rules, he can't call the sideline. He can't make any contact with the team once they get into the stadium. I'm sure it's kind of like They're rolling him around on like a TV, like with this like rolling mount, and he's like rolling around, going to all the meetings throughout the week. But when the game time starts, he cannot make any contact. He has to simply sit at home and watch on his TV, which I'm sure he won't like. And then, of course, Ryan Day also testing positive, which took Ohio State's whole team out of it. So let's go ahead and get into our Saturday statements here as we continue going through the Patrick Party pregame show. Well, today on Saturday statements, we like to make a couple of statements that we think will be true as we do it. So, statement number 1, I think that Auburn's defense is going to, hey, look, I see someone I know on game day. So, Auburn's defense is going to be holding Alabama under 30 points yet again. They've done it all season. I think they're going to keep it going, and I think they will hold Alabama's defense under 30 points. So I think that's really going to be big for Auburn if they want to really try and win this game. Number 2, I think Najee Harris is going to have a big day for Alabama. The way Auburn's kind of done it, how do I explain this? So, when Auburn played Ole Miss has a very high tendency to really throw the deep ball and really just have like 2-3 play, like 75-yard scoring drives. Well, Auburn said, no, if you want to score, we're going to make you go all the way down the field. And they did that a couple of times, but Auburn never gave up the big play to Ole Miss. I think they're going to try to do something similar to Alabama. Bend, don't break. That's been a theme. We talked about that in our Patrick Party article. So I think that's definitely something that they're going to try to do. So those are our 2 Saturday statements. But now, a new segment. Let's go ahead and get into Heisman hopefuls. Well, I think the 2 people on the picture are really the only 2 that even really have a shot at winning this thing. Kyle Trask, probably the favorite, at least my favorite, to go ahead and win the Heisman Trophy. So he's had such a huge year at Florida. Their only loss was a close one to Texas A&M. And Mac Jones has had a huge year. He kind of took over for Tua in that late injury to end it off last year. And then they ended up being able to really get it going. And this year, he was a 5-star recruit. So, he was going to be good. And he's definitely excelled in this season. Who would I favor right now? I think both of these players will go to New York. But I would favor Kyle Trask for sure in this one. I think he's had a really strong year. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to their showdown with Alabama and how that's all going to go down. So that is my thoughts on our Heisman hopefuls. I really don't think anyone else is going to really win this game. Let's go ahead and get into our next segment, the spread. Well, we love the spread here on the Patrick Party, and it's just another fun little segment we've been doing for a couple of weeks. So let's go ahead and get started with probably, you would call it the worst game of the day, but it's also kind of interesting because those 2 teams are so bad. And I think something that to look at in this one, I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring, but we'll get into that in the over-under. But Michigan is favored. I would keep it going. I would take Michigan in this one. I just think that Penn State is really bad. They haven't won yet. What tells you they're going to win now? That's just kind of my thought on all of that. So let's keep it going here on the Patrick Party Pregame Show. We have Mississippi, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. Well, Ole Miss is favored by 10 points, or 9.5 technically. I would take Ole Miss in this one. Mississippi State has not shown. Mississippi State's just not a good football team. Their defense is not very good. Their offense really isn't good. And I know Ole Miss has a bad defense. Mississippi State will put up some points, but Ole Miss is going to put up a whole bunch of points against the Bulldogs. So I would take Ole Miss in this one. Then we have Florida, Kentucky. Well, Florida, a 25.5 point favorite. That offense led by Kyle Trask is electric. I've been saying it multiple times all year long, and they're playing Kentucky, who is not electric. No offense to Terry Wilson, they're just not that good. I would definitely pick Florida in this one. I think they could score a whole bunch of points, and I just don't think, although Florida's defense isn't very good, I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. So I would pick the Gators in that one. Then you have Auburn, Alabama. Alabama's a 24.5 point favorite. I'm definitely picking Auburn on this one. I think even if Alabama wins, I think Auburn will put up way better of a fight than that. I think this will be a close game regardless of who ends up winning it. So I would definitely pick Auburn. More to come when we talk about the Iron Bowl. Let's go ahead and get into our college football playoff. This is kind of a new segment. We've been talking about the AP Top 25 poll, but now we're transitioning because on Tuesday night they released the college football playoff Top 25. So we're going to reveal it to you in kind of a new little way. So let's get started. So we have in the 25 spot Tulsa, 24 Iowa. Iowa won yet again against Nebraska. They have a win streak and they're going to continue it to keep going. Oklahoma State falls back to 23 after their loss to Oklahoma. Auburn in the 22 spot, and Marshall, I believe, still undefeated at 21. So that's 25 to 21, the top fifth of the rankings. Next up, we have at number 20, Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers kind of fell back. Both of the Marshall and Coastal Carolina, they're a little bit higher up in the AP. College football playoff said, no, you're not playing anybody. I tend to agree. They kind of pushed them back. North Carolina in the 19, they'll look to fall after their loss to Notre Dame last night. USC, number 18, continuing their undefeated season, had to cancel a game against Colorado today because USC had an outbreak. Texas, number 17, lost to Iowa State. I believe Texas is not eligible now for the Big 12 championship. They will definitely fall back after that loss. And Wisconsin, number 16, I think they had to cancel another game. They will not be eligible, regardless of what happens the rest of the season, because they have not played enough games for the Big 10 championship due to too many cancellations. Then we have Oregon in the number 15 spot, followed by BYU. Here's something to consider. So to be in the New Year's Six, the Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl are the playoff semifinals, but you also have the Fiesta Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and the Cotton Bowl. You have to be in the top 12 to be eligible for those, or the highest ranked group of 5 team. Well, BYU's not a group of 5 team. You're probably like, what? Well, BYU is in the same status as Notre Dame. They're technically an independent. So if BYU wants to get in to the New Year's Six, they have to be ranked in the top 12. Being ranked the highest group of 5 team will not be enough for the Cougars. They'll look to schedule some more games against some quality opponents to try and get up in the top 12. And probably some more losses would probably help them achieve that goal too by some other teams. And then you have Indiana in the 12th falling back after losing to Ohio State. And then Oklahoma's, after their horrible start, has found their way all the way back up to 11. So yay for them. And now our 10 through 5, and then we'll do our top 4 in the playoff format. Number 10, you have Miami. They're just kind of staying around, having a pretty good season with Rhett Lashley, Manny Diaz, that entire squad. Derek King as their quarterback. Georgia all the way up to the 9. I did not agree with this one at all. I just don't think they're that good. I mean, heck, they beat Auburn, but that's about it. I just don't think they're that good. Northwestern in the 8. They're looking now to be in the Big 10 championship game after beating Wisconsin. So I definitely like Northwestern just to get to that game. I don't know if they're going to win. Cincinnati's in the 7, highest ranked group of 5 teams, so they would currently be the one to get the bid for a New Year's Six bowl. Florida in the 6, A&M in the 5. They tried to make a controversy out of Texas A&M and Florida. Who should be ranked higher? Florida looks like the better team, but Texas A&M beat them. And if we disregard head-to-head, why do we even play the games? So I think it's fair, and I think A&M deserves where they're at for having a pretty good season. Okay, and then we'll show you in our playoff format. This is how it would lay out if the college football playoff was today. So we have Alabama in the 1 spot playing number 4, Ohio State. I believe they moved Clemson from 4 to 3. They kind of flip-flopped Ohio State and Clemson. So you would have a Notre Dame-Clemson rematch in the Rose Bowl, but they're going to play in the ACC Championship, and one would think that would end up being kind of a quarterfinal leading into the semifinal because it looks like, but I don't think both of them will get in. I think one or the other. Maybe Notre Dame could get in if they're undefeated and they lose just that one game, but I don't know. Okay, let's go ahead and get into over-under here on the Patrick Party pregame show. Well, over-under 61 points for Florida and Kentucky. I'm going to take the under, and here's why. Florida could score 55 points, but I don't know if Kentucky will even get a touchdown. They stink on offense. I'm going to go with the under, although I think Florida scores far and away the majority of those 61, some number under 61 points. Next up on over-under, we have the Egg Bowl, the very interesting Egg Bowl for sure, to say the least. So they're at 69.5. I think Ole Miss will put up some big numbers. Kind of the same thought that I had with Florida. I just don't know how much Mississippi State's going to score, but I think Ole Miss's defense is so bad they could get a couple touchdowns. I'm going to go with the over in this one. Expect high scoring, not very close, but high scoring. And a good, I'll go ahead and say it, Ole Miss victory for Lane Kiffin. Now you have Penn State, Michigan, 58.5. Let's see, that would have both teams scoring just around a little bit under 30. No, it's the Big Ten, which doesn't mean anything because nowadays everyone scores a lot. But two bad teams, I don't think there's going to be a lot of scoring at all. I would take the under and this one. And then Auburn, Alabama, 62.5, having both teams score in the 30s. If Auburn really wants to win, I don't think they need to be trying to get in some big shootout with Alabama because I don't think that is a game Auburn can win. Auburn needs to keep this one close and not very high scoring if the Tigers want to pull this one out. So I'm going to go ahead and say under because that'll affect my pick. Now let's go ahead and get into by the numbers. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start with Penn State, Michigan here on our by the numbers segment. We'll talk about the same 4 games that we just did, but some historical stats. So all time, Michigan and Penn State. Penn State has a 1-game lead. They won back in 2019. Michigan has the all-time series lead, 14-9. There have been 0 ties. Largest margin of victory, 46-17 for the Nittany Lions. For the Wolverines, 49-10. Longest win streaks for Penn State, only 4. They're currently on a 1-game win streak. For Michigan, 9. All-time stats, Michigan leads most of them. They lead most of them against anybody, except for Penn State has played in just 2 more bowl games than the Wolverines, 50-48. And bowl record, Penn State wins more bowl games than Michigan does. So, hey, go Nittany Lions for that. Next up on our by the numbers segment, we have Florida and Kentucky. Well, this is actually pretty interesting because the streak was just snapped recently, and this one, Florida had a big win streak, a 31-game win streak for sure. Kentucky's only had at most a 4-game win streak, so Florida leads the all-time series 52-18. Florida on a current game win streak of just 1 after in 2018 Kentucky snapped the streak down in the swamp, and Dan Mullen did something in the first 2 games of being a Florida coach that no other Florida coach had done in 30 years. So yay for Dan Mullen. Florida leads all the all-time stats like you would expect, which include all-time record, national championships, conference championships, all-time wins, All-Americans, Heisman winners, anything kind of around that. Those are our, quote, all-time stats. And then the Iron Bowl in our by the numbers segment. Let's get on over to it. So the all-time series lead is 46-37. Alabama leads, despite playing the majority of those games at home in Birmingham, where they used to play all their home games. So Auburn hadn't hosted very many, but Auburn still is kind of respectable with it. Only 1 tie ever. Must have been a long time ago. They didn't play for a good long while in the early 20th century. Auburn's on a 1-game win streak, though, after the big win in 2019. Largest margins of victory, Alabama 55-0, Auburn 48-0. Auburn's longest win streak was 6 games. The whole Fear the Thumb, and I guess 1 more after that game. And then Alabama was on a 9-game win streak back with Bear Bryant until Bo went over the top. All-time stats, Alabama leads most of them, except Auburn has more Heisman winners than Alabama. Auburn has Cam Newton, Pat Sullivan, and Bo Jackson to Alabama's Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry, which both happened in the Saban era. And that's going to do it for our By the Numbers segment. We're now going to go ahead and get into, we were talking about the Iron Bowl, our Iron Bowl preview, one of our bigger segments for today before we get into Bingham's Booms and the rest of the game. So, the 85th edition of the Iron Bowl is this Saturday in Bryant-Denny Stadium on the SEC on CBS Game of the Week. SEC on CBS hasn't had a game in 2 weeks. Both Alabama LSU postponed actually now to next week. There was some rescheduling. And Texas A&M Ole Miss. So CBS is excited to be doing this instead of the Mountain West. Definitely a little bit better of a game. I bet more people will watch. But In this game, in this top 25 matchup, Alabama obviously will be looking to win after their loss last year, 48-45 in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Mac Jones replacing Tua Tagovailoa last year. Now he's the experienced veteran. He threw 2 pick sixes back in 2019. One to Zacoby McClain and one to Smoke Monday. The Zacoby McClain was the 100-yard pick six. And then Bo Nix, he's won an Iron Bowl before, but this is his first trip to Tuscaloosa, which is definitely an entirely different animal, to say the least. We'll see how we can do. It's not a full crowd, so I think that he'll definitely help. But Alabama, their fleet of receivers, that offense is so dynamite. Najee Harris, their running game, is not bad either, but that fleet of receivers, Devontae Smith, just everybody, Jalen Waddle, who's actually now hurt, or he had been hurt since the Tennessee game. They're very, very talented on offense, and I think that Auburn defense, like we've been saying, they might let Najee run for 200-plus yards, but the bend, don't break mentality is what Auburn's going to need. Auburn has also stopped teams in the red zone a lot this season. They've had 200-yard pick sixes in the red zone. One of them got called back against they had 3 pick sixes in the red zone. 2 were 100 yards. 1 got called back against Kentucky. 1 was last week against Tennessee, and then Auburn just got a regular pick six against Ole Miss. So Auburn will have to stop Alabama in the red zone, and Auburn's going to have to score in the red zone. Kicking field goals against Alabama is not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to win. Auburn's going to have to put touchdowns on the board, get into the end zone. Big storyline coming into today. The health of Tank Bigsby. Will he be able to go? I don't know. Nobody Auburn said he's questionable, and they had not said anything since. It looked like he had a lower left hip injury, so we'll see how it ends up going, how much he'll play, but we just have no idea. Also, Broderius Ham and Alec Jackson, both of Auburn's starting tackles, injured last week. Alec Jackson came out with this whole big club on his hand. I don't know how you can play tackle with that. So we'll just see if they're not able to play. Auburn has other players to play for them, but it's not going to be good because Alabama, is going to be blitzing Bo Nix a lot. Everybody knows it. When Bo Nix gets out of the pocket, it just doesn't. It's not very good. He's not nearly as effective when he gets out of the pocket, and they're going to try and put a lot of pressure on him. And if Auburn's both of tackles are out, it's going to just make it that much easier. And it's also going to hurt the running game. If Tank isn't ready to go, who has broken so many tackles, DJ Williams and Sean Shivers, who ran through Xavier McKinley last year, they're going to have to be able to run through. But without those tackles, it's going to be hard to establish a running game. And when you get one-dimensional against Alabama, you don't normally win or ever really win. So we'll see how it goes. But for defense for Auburn, we've talked about bend, don't break. We've talked about all that. And then the special teams, which you wouldn't think would be that big of a deal, but has been the biggest deal in Iron Bowl histories. If you remember Daniel Carlson's had some good Iron Bowls too. But his brother Anders Carlson made 5 field goals, really kind of 6. Last year, they took one off the board. Auburn got another first down, then had to kick it again. Special teams will definitely be a big thing. And how many times has Alabama been haunted by a missed kick, specifically the kick 6 and then many others, because they missed 3 field goals in that game leading up to that point. So we'll see how that goes down. But Alabama has had a stronger kicker this year, so one would think that maybe that'll be a little bit better. And then, of course, the big storyline, Nick Saban not going to be at the Iron Bowl. Well, when it comes down to it, he's been able to be at all the practices leading up to it on Zoom. They've already kind of had a test run with this when he had the false positive against Georgia. Because that was a rapid test, he was able to test out of it. But this was not a rapid test when he tested positive this time. And he was experiencing mild symptoms, so he was not even eligible to test out. He had to do the quarantine at his home. And once the team gets to the stadium, due to technology rules, it's not like there's going to be a rolling TV of him on the sideline. He is not allowed to make any contact at halftime, anytime. For Alabama, he has to simply sit on his couch and watch it at home like the rest of us, which I'm sure he will hate. But that's just how things go now. And then, of course, Gus Malzahn, really the only one... Oh, and then Gus Malzahn, the only one that's really beat Alabama in this stretch, the Nick Saban era. The only other coaches to beat Alabama more than once, Dabo Swinney beat him twice in national championship games, but he doesn't play them every year. And then Hugh Freeze, who's now at Liberty, and we found out he was cheating. So, does that really count? Sure and no. But Gus Malzahn beat him 3 times, 13, 17, 19. Can he do it again today? If Auburn wins, they'll have won 3 out of the last 4 Iron Bowls, which would be huge for a whole bunch of reasons for Auburn. But we'll see in this reduced capacity led out by Steve Sarkisian how the Tide will respond. It'll definitely be tougher for Steve Sarkisian because he's not just sitting there dialing up his next offensive play. He's got to be in charge of the whole team. He's got to be able to make all of his calls. And, of course, when it gets down to a big moment, maybe it'll help him that Steve Sarkisian's out there, not Nick Saban. Because, heck, Nick Saban put the second back on the clock. Nick Saban put an extra player out there. So, who knows? But I think, nonetheless, it is going to be a wonderful, wonderful Iron Bowl. I think it's going to be a great game regardless of who wins. So, it'll be good. Weather looks good in Bryant-Denny in Alabama right now. Looks good on College Game Day. So, I think it's going to be a great Iron Bowl. That's our Iron Bowl preview. For more on the 85th edition of the Iron Bowl, go to patrickparty.com. We have a special article out. For anyone that wants to read it, you just go to patrickparty.com. It'll literally be right there on that home screen. You can just click on the picture of Bo Nix scoring the touchdown last year in the Iron Bowl, and you will get our fun little preview. Let's go ahead and get into Bingham's Booms. So let's explain Bingham's Booms for any of our new friends here on the Patrick Party pregame show. So here is what happens. So we pick the best game from each time slot. Then, within that game, we pick one team's offense or defense, and we give them a big old boom, and we say that they're going to have a great day. So, let me go back to our Saturday slate. Let's see our best game of the first, little time. It's not the best game, but it's an interesting game. Michigan, Penn State. I've talked about it a lot, and you're probably like, why? Those teams suck. Well, here's why. They do suck. I mean, let's be real. But it's kind of entertaining to watch them struggle. And it's kind of funny because, they're just so proud of the Big Ten. And then one of their 2 greatest programs, Penn State and Michigan, who have historically done all these great things, are stinking. And there's no excuse for it because they've had great recruiting classes and have lots of talent. But I think when it comes down to it, I think that Michigan offense, big old boom. Well, it kind of glitched. So, boom. I definitely think Michigan's offense is going to have a big day. And I think they're going to be able to score enough points. I just don't know if Penn State and Sean Clifford will be able to keep up with that. Then we're going to skip the afternoon time slot because we're going to talk about that in a second, if you know what I'm talking about. And then let's go to that nightcapper. I think the best game, honestly, it is probably that Washington-Utah game. I just think it's very interesting. Utah, only their second game of the season. Washington hadn't been that good either. But I'm going to give Washington's offense a big old boom. I think they're going to be able to score enough points. Utah's just been a little inconsistent because they hadn't played a lot. So I just think experience will win, and I definitely am going to go with Washington's offense. And then the Iron Bowl, obviously the best game of the entire day. I'm going to go with that Auburn defense. Going to get a big old boom from head coach Gus Malzahn. Kind of glitched again. Boom. So, I think they're going to be able to hold Alabama under 30 points. They've held every other team under 30 points. I think, although, bend don't break. I've said it all day long, and I'll keep saying it because I think that's going to be the theme. They're going to bend. Alabama might get some big plays, but I don't think they're going to give up the 85-yard touchdown pass to Alabama. So, I like Auburn's defense in that. Well, that's really it for the Patrick Party today. Patrick Party pregame show. Closing thoughts. I mean, I think it's going to be a great day of college football, of course. Watch the Iron Bowl. Big game today. So many storylines. Let's go ahead and talk about the Patrick Party for just a second. So, we will have you're about to see our picks from Jordan-Hare Stadium. We'll repost them on all of our social media platforms. We'll also have our polls on our Instagram and Facebook stories. And then, hey, when you're done looking at all of our stuff, feel free to go to ESPN on your cable or TV or however you have it set up, YouTube TV, whatever you got at home. And I might be on College Game Day. I was selected to be a virtual fan. I've already seen my parents twice on the screen, and maybe we'll get on again. So, if you're interested, you might see me on ESPN later today. No, I'm not getting interviewed on College Game Day. I'm just a fan. But that's going to do it here for the Patrick Party. We'll be back tomorrow with our NFL coverage. But let's go ahead and show you our picks from Jordan-Hare Stadium. Enjoy your college football weekend. Welcome into the Patrick Party here, Thanksgiving and rivalry weekend. Man, we have a lot of big games in store this Saturday. Well, let's go ahead and get it started first. You have Florida, Kentucky, a big-time matchup. I like the Gators big in this one. They're on their road to Atlanta, and I don't think anybody's going to stop them. I think we'll see a Florida, Alabama, big SEC championship game, but I like the Gators. Then you have Georgia, South Carolina. Well, Muschamp obviously fired. And I think with that, South Carolina has no hope, especially since they beat them last year. The Dogs will be ready, and I think JT Daniels will have another big day for Georgia. Then you have LSU, Texas A&M. LSU beat the crap out of Texas A&M last year. I think A&M's going to reverse it to them this year. The last time they played in Kyle Field was that crazy overtime game. I think A&M gets another big win as they look to maybe even sneak into the playoffs. We'll see how that goes. Then you have Auburn, Alabama, the 85th edition of the Iron Bowl. It'll be in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Auburn has never lost in Bryant-Denny Stadium when Nick Saban has not been on the sideline. The only person to actually beat Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium when Nick Saban was coaching for them, that guy right up there. So we'll see how this one goes this weekend. But there's some key injuries. Tank Bigsby, multiple offensive linemen that the Tigers will need to be healthy and effective if they want to pull, upset, and spoiler to the Tide's hopes of having a perfect season. I like Auburn in this one. I think Gus Malzahn has outcoached Nick Saban multiple times in previous Iron Bowls, and I think they're going to do it again. I think Auburn will have won 3 out of the last 4 Iron Bowls, but we'll see how it all goes down. That defense is going to have to be stellar for the Tigers if they want to slow down Mac Jones and that fleet of wide receivers. But I like the Tigers nonetheless big in Bryant-Denny Stadium. So that's going to be our picks here for our rivalry weekend edition of the Patrick Party. We'll be back next week for more college football and basketball coverage.